In this DIY, we're going to show you how to build a kitchen island stand. It's a standard wooden workbench which we've zhuzhed up by installing some slide rails with some wicker baskets. We've got some caster wheels on the bottom which allows us to move it around and also lock it into place. At the end of the day, it's an island stand to add a feature to your kitchen. It's a talking point, it's a conversation piece, it's a gathering point. We're going to show you just how to do this DIY step by step. So here's what I use for this builder's DIY. I use a standard builder's flat pack workbench. I've used some drawer slides, some 69 by 20 timber, some 32mm by 8mm cover strip, 2 wicker baskets. I'm using some white wood stain sealer and an Mbuya wood stain sealer, a paintbrush, some screws, a tape measure, some caster wheels. I'm making use of my Craig jig, and I'm making use of a miter saw. So the first thing I need to do is actually move all this stuff out of the way and create a workspace which is convenient and easy for me to work in. For this DIY, I'm making use of some caster wheels. 2 of them are going to have brakes, so I can lock this kitchen island into position as I want it, and the other 2 will be free. As you can see, I'm using quite a small caster, and the most important thing is you check the weight loading of the caster. Each caster is designed to handle a specific weight. These casters can handle a maximum of 35 kilograms each, so putting all 4 together, I can handle 140 kilos on this whole table, which I think is more than sufficient for this application. So whatever you're using casters for, just make sure that you are using the right caster for the right loading. The first thing I need to do is trim the legs off. I'm going to be adding a caster wheel to the bottom of the legs, and I don't want to raise the whole bench up, so I'm actually going to trim off those legs the same height as these caster wheels, which is 70mm. To trim off the legs, I can either make use of my miter box or my electric miter saw. I've got my bottom shelf out, and my 2 baskets, as I said, are going to sit on each shelf on the bottom row, and they're going to slide out. So we're going to be mounting our rails on the side of the wicker baskets. I need to put in a mounting support to grab onto the side of the rail, and then we'll duplicate that exactly the same for the other basket. And as I said, we're going to make use of that cover strip just on this outer edge, just so that we can have a smooth, flush finish that my rail can actually bind onto. Because as you can see on the wicker baskets, it's not actually a straight edge, and you've got the corners which are bulging out where the wicker's been doubled up. So basically, we know it's going to be sitting in the middle. We've got our rail, which is going to be sitting flush with the bottom of the basket. So we're going to make use of that cover strip, which I'm going to cut to the length of the rail. This particular rail that I'm using is 350mm long, so I'm obviously going to be cutting the same length out of my cover strip. When working with the rails, it's much easier when the rails come apart. As you can see, there's a little lever on the inside here. As you take it off, that's this side of the rail, which is going to go on the basket, and this is going to be mounted onto the shelf. We've got our 4 pieces of cover strip. Since we've got 4 rails, which is 2 baskets, 1 either side, we mark out to the center of our basket, and then we're going to mark on the center of the 350 piece of cover strip, and then we're going to open up our rail. Now we can work with just the one side of the rail. So we're going to line it up into position, and we're going to screw that all the way into the side of the basket. We're going to do exactly the same thing for each side and each basket. I now need to put the other side of my drawer slide onto the shelf itself, but I need a vertical for it to mount on. So I'm going to make use of some 69 by 20. I'm just going to make 2 posts or 2 rail runners, which is going to hold those drawer sliders. 1 in the center, and then 1 on the either side of the outer edges of the drawers, so that these rails can mount onto. Now when it comes to mounting your drawer slides, the spacing is critical. The space between the inner surface and the outer surface of the drawer slide is 12.7mm per side. So we've got 2 of them, add the 2 together, we've got 25.4mm. That is the clearance gap that I need between each surface face for these drawer slides to mount in. Too narrow and your drawer slides are going to be compressed, and it's going to be a very tight fit, and your drawer is not going to open and close easily. Likewise if it's too far apart. So it's critical that you have each side 12.7mm. So the best way to do it is actually, because I'm working with a wicker basket and it's not always perfect every time, I've actually mounted the slides on, just measure the distance to the inner edge, and then add 25.4mm. Then you know your exact positioning for the outer rails. Let's move these out the way. We don't need these until the end. So I'm going to be starting with the center and working my way out. I'm going to find the center. 104 gives me 52. So I'm going to be cutting this rail to the width of the shelf, and as you can see, it's sitting right where one of my slats are. So I'm actually just going to move that out the way because I want a much stronger, secure mounting to this frame of the shelf. So I'll just take a hammer. They come out very easily, and out pops the slat. We can put that aside and use it later if we need to. I'm going to remove the pins using some pliers, and then I'm going to cut this to the exact width. I'm going to make 3 of them because I need one for the center and then one for either side of the drawer slides. My centerpiece is going to go in, and I need to screw it all the way down into the framework. Now I'm working very close to the edge here. So if I drill all the way down, I've got to use a long screw, and it might split because it's so close to the edge. So I'm going to make use of a pocket hole, so it's going to come in on the side and there's no chance of that timber splitting.
Alternatively, you can glue into position using some wood glue.
I've got my pocket holes into place, and I'm just going to line it up there. But before I mount it into position, I'm just going to put it on the sander and just take off those corners just to round them off and make it look a little bit better. Now I'm going to put this into place, mark in position, pop in your Kreg screw, and then fasten it down. That rail's in. Now I know from that side I've got to go a total of 414.4 millimeters to the other side. That's the width of my basket with the spacer in it, as well as the additional 12.7 per side. Now that I've got my uprights in position, I now need to put the side rails on either side. But I also need to fill in this gap, so I'm going to make use of these leftover slats and just shuffle them over slightly and knock that down with a nail. When installing your hinge, make sure you get it the right way round. We are going to be opening out in that direction, so the drawer slide moves out like that. Turn it around, flip it over, and then into position. Now remember, I'm going into the center point. That's going to be evenly spaced, and I'm just going to put the screws in and fasten that into place. Right, my rails are in. I've got my first drawer slide is into position. It's attached to the basket and it's moving back and forth, no problems. I've got the next one, so the moment of truth to see if everything went smoothly. And as you can see, there's the guide slide. You're going to slide it into there, and exactly the same on the other side. Pull it down parallel. It'll click a little bit when it's first going in, then it'll just work its way into position, and then you should be A for away. There you have it. Our 2 drawers are fixed and mounted onto this bottom shelf. So it's best to take these baskets out. It's going to be much easier now just to give it a light sand, a good clean up, and you're going to stain it with a wood sealer. Now when it comes to staining the timber, I'm going to be using this wood stain wood sealer. This is water-based, and I'm using an emboyer for the top surface, for the shelves and the basket. Apply at least 2 coats. For the legs and for the side rail all the way around, I'm going to be using the white wood stain sealer. What I really like about this white wood stain sealer is it still allows that grain characteristic to shine through the sealer. I've got everything painted up. I've got my shelves on the emboyer, and I've got my legs and the side rails on the white wood stain sealer. Now I'm just going to start putting the legs into position and making use of the tool which comes with the kit to actually screw those bolts all the way into position and lock everything down firmly. Now when you are securing the bolts, remember to keep the bolts loose until you've got all the pieces into place. It just allows a little bit of play between the legs and allows you to put those shells in easily. And there you have it, our DIY is complete. So as a quick summary, what did we use? We used a standard workbench which we assembled, and we changed a little bit by adding in these baskets on these drawer slides. That opens and closes, easy to use. We also added in the caster wheels. We trimmed legs off shorter, popped in the caster wheels, and that allows us to move it around and lock it into place. Then we put on 2 coats of white wood sealer and 2 coats of emboyer wood sealer. We assembled all the components back together, and voila, we have a portable kitchen island. Now it's time to put it to use and get it into a kitchen. If you enjoyed this clip and found it useful, subscribe to our YouTube channel for similar videos. Remember, everything you need is available at your local builder's outlet.